Hi everybody, I'm Patrick, and this is Ragnarok and Revolutionize.
Ragnarok and Revolutionize. The Tears and Rain monologue from 1982's Blade Runner is a bittersweet and perfectly concise observation as to the conscious experience we share as human beings. It achieves maximum dramatic effect, being given by an artificially created, biological life form in the last moments of his material existence, just after a major revelation of consciousness. Even while acknowledging the futility of his existence, the character of Roy Batty is still able to maintain the integrity of his life and his individual experience. First off, we must have some basic understanding of Roy Batty as a character. Roy is an android, artificially created out of biological matter, and designed to function as a physically, but not mentally, advanced being. In the futuristic society depicted in Blade Runner, these androids function as slaves and are created with short lifespans. They are not given sufficient time to develop enough awareness to assert their individuality, which could possibly make them rise up and rebel against their physically inferior owners. Because of the dangers, they are not allowed to exist on Earth, and are only used by human beings on other planets, which in the film is referred to as off-world. If a replicant breaks this law, they are hunted and killed by the Blade Runner division, who are an arm of the already existing police force. At its most basic level, the Tears and Rain speech is Roy Batty crying out, "Why me?" in his final moments of life. Roy is an anomaly. He has taken the dive into conscious self-awareness that was feared by his human creators. He has returned to Earth to confront these creators. After receiving no answer to his questions, we sympathize with him to some degree, regardless of his past indiscretions. Roy's creator, Dr. Tyrell, said in response to Roy saying, "I have done questionable things," he says, "also extraordinary things." This exchange gives us the impression that Dr. Tyrell views Roy's crime something like the mischief of an unaware child. Roy's naivete will soon be overcome, and his evolution will be apparent by the end of the film. Roy is realizing, throughout the film, as we all do in life, that the records of the things we have observed will all die along with our body. This is the simple, bittersweet revelation of the monologue, that although many of the experiences we have in life bring us a great deal of joy, they are completely meaningless once no one is left to carry the memory. Maybe this is the reason that human beings incessantly archive their lives with pictures and video on social media. Maybe it's like a desperate attempt to secure some level of autonomy in a completely insecure and transient world. Let's take a look at the words in the monologue itself. "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears and rain. Time to die." At the time he gives this speech, Roy has seen 3 of his companions killed because of Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, who is now completely at his mercy. In fact, he has just saved Deckard from falling to his death, and the audience may assume that he has done so only because he intends to kill him himself. If we consider the symbolism of the last few minutes of the film, we can easily put this assumption aside. We know that Roy is close to death. The artificially created androids, known as replicants, are given a 4-year lifespan, and Roy's desire to extend his life is the plot device which moves the action of the film forward. Roy and his fellow replicants are presented as antagonists, but the growth of Roy up to the climax of the movie puts him in a different place at the moment of his death. At least it should, considering the symbolism of his death scene. The Christ-like imagery is front and center in this scene, considering the first use of natural lighting, the doves, and the self-inflicted stigmata on Roy's hands. As the final confrontation of the film begins, Roy has just discovered the lifeless corpse of his last companion, Pris, who has just been shot and killed by Deckard. As Roy grieves, Deckard surprises him. He fires a shot and misses, and then Roy disappears. His voice is heard off camera, and then he abruptly breaks through the wall next to Deckard. He pulls his arm back through the hole in the wall and breaks 2 of his fingers as he holds him captive. He then gives Deckard his arm back, as well as a head start running away. This leaves the audience somewhat confused as to why he didn't just kill Deckard right there, as he clearly has the ability to do so. The key to understanding the game of cat and mouse that Roy and Deckard will be playing throughout the climax is found in observing what happens after he lets Deckard go, and also in the childlike mischief observation that we made previously. Roy returns to the body of his fallen companion Pris. Her death has affected him deeply, as shown by the confused emotional reactions he displays. These expressions show the deep changes going on inside of Roy as he struggles through the painful awakening of consciousness that has just befallen him. As children, we are all innocent and free until we come to terms with the finality of the human experience. Children, naive of human mortality, are free to love completely and unconditionally with no fear of loss. Children, unaware of the finality of death, live under the supposition that those whom they love will always be there when they want or need them. The expressions of Roy throughout this scene show his realization that his companions are completely gone, and with them, all the experiences and memories that they had acquired. This is why Blade Runner was Rutger Hauer's career-defining moment. The emotional pain his character is going through is actually affecting him on a physical level, and Hauer's performance of this is perfectly conveyed, not to mention the fact that Tears in Rain was actually his own addition to the script. Honestly, we could talk about how wonderful this movie is until the Electric Sheep come home, but the reason I made this video is to tell you what the Tears in Rain speech means to me. It means more than just the words themselves. The speech has become a symbol representing many different things for me. All these things will not be lost, as long as someone holds on to their memory. Let's go back to the speech itself. The reaction that Roy has to his own opening statement, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe," once again shows this physical response to emotional pain. It is also apparent that Roy treats human beings with a certain level of disdain. Of course, we know that Deckard is most likely a replicant himself, but that's another story for another time. The next few lines are inconsequential sci-fi jargon, but that's not meant to take away from him because they're very poetic and delivered beautifully. Basically, attack ships on fire and C-beams, it's just exposition for the idea that Roy has experienced things impossible for the average human to experience. And though he lived most of his life a slave, he actually had more of a meaningful life than his creators. This, of course, is Roy's opinion, but that's the beauty of the entire thing, that each conscious experience is completely subjective to the individual. Each moment you have is completely your own. These are the moments that will be lost in time. Those moments in time where we experience the material world as a complete and self-aware individual. Bittersweet. Tears in Rain are a metaphor. The tears are one individual's conscious experience, and the rain is the amalgamation of all other individualities' conscious experiences. We are the tears, and everyone else is the rain. As human beings, we are in a constant fight with our ego to avoid the state of mind Roy Batty was in when he chose the words, "I've seen things you people wouldn't believe." He quickly realizes, as the enlightened among us do, that our subjective experiences are equal to the subjective experiences of another individual. The only objective way to view the situation is that we all have experiences. The degree or measure of any individual experience is subjective to the individual and is equal to every other subjective individual experience. That is to say that regardless of whether or not you are an android that gained consciousness, a Blade Runner, a farmer in Australia, an Inuit in Canada, or a barista at the Starbucks in Kalamazoo, if you're self-aware, then your life is of the same value of anyone else's. Yes, it's important to understand that we are all a collective, but we fail at really achieving this ideal as soon as we exclude even one individual from that collective. That is exactly what Roy has figured out. In spite of all the reasons that Deckard has given him, he chooses not to end his life. Roy places himself upon the cross of self-sacrifice, and he dies with the first appearance of natural light in the entire film. We also have the releasing of doves, symbolically representing the spirit leaving the body. Though I refer to as Christ imagery, the symbolism is not specifically Christian. The idea of the sun as a renewing savior is a universal concept. The idea of being reborn is the big concept at work here. Roy Batty individuates his consciousness, rebels, shatters his own ego, accepts death, forgives, then saves the life of his enemy, all within moments. We have witnessed the rebirth of Roy Batty into enlightenment, and the dove is released. Roy Batty died so that we may live.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
Ragnarok and revolutionize.